Hi Stampers, it's Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Welcome. I'm excited that you're here because today we're going to work on a sliding pocket card, and this one is in the landscaped orientation. We're going to be using the Cute as a Bee designer series paper and the Be My Valentine stamp set. So let's get started. So here is today's card. As I mentioned, it's a sliding pocket, which means this lifts up as we open the card, and it reveals this little pocket that holds a gift card. Okay, this is similar to one I did before, where we did both the landscape and the portrait in one video, and then I did a portrait version in its own video. But same idea, we're just turning it on its side and doing it landscaped. As I said, we're going to be using the Be My Valentine stamp set. And I realize it's a Valentine's stamp set and we're not anywhere near Valentine's Day, but I still like the fact that there's lots of, I love you no matter what kind of stuff in here, which works, right? Okay, so we're going to need a card base. And so this card base is going to start out being 8.5 by 5.5, and we're going to score that at 2.5 and 6 3/4. We're going to need another piece of Petunia Pop. This is one of our 2024 to 2026 in colors. Okay, we have this one here that is 6 inches by 4 1/4, and we're scoring it at 1/2 inch and 4 inches. Okay, these two are both going to be valleys, and this is going to be a mountain and then a valley for our score lines. Okay. I have an additional piece of the Petunia Pop that is 4 1/4 by 3 for our focal point on the front, and then we're going to put over that a piece of basic white that is 4 inches by 2 3/4. And then I have an additional piece. I did the same size because the width was going to be the same, only this was going to be a little longer, but it doesn't really need to be longer because as it slides in and out of the card, we're not going to see the bottom of that. So they're never going to notice that the paper doesn't go all the way down, and I thought it would just be simpler to have them both the same size. Then we don't mix up our pieces, right? We're going to decorate with some Cute as a Bee designer series paper. So my layer for the inside is 5 1/4 by 4. And then I have two pieces that are going to be outside. Now my bottom piece is going to be 5 1/4 by 2 1/4. And then my top piece is, again, 5 1/4 by 1 1/2 this time. So those will go on the front. As I said, both of these are going to be valley folds as we burnish them. But I'm going to do one, and then I'm going to take my second one, and it doesn't matter which one we do, just the fact that the second one we fold in, I'm kind of arcing it a little bit, and I'm making sure that it's butting up on the inside. I want this to match exactly. I don't want a gap, and I don't want them overlapping. So I'm going to make sure that those are straight, and then I'm going to burnish up into it. So when I'm reinforcing this score line, it's when they are perfectly aligned in the middle. And we can go ahead and adhere our designer series paper right away. I like to get as many little pieces out of the way as I can ahead of time. Just makes it simpler when there's less pieces on my desk. Okay, so we're just going to center this one overall in here. And then, as I said, these two pieces go on the front. So the 2 1/4 piece on the bottom. And then the 1 1/2 on the top. And I am paying attention to the direction of my designer series papers so that all the bees are right side up. Okay. This piece that's going to go on the inside, as I said, it's going to be that pocket, and it's going to slide in and out. But with this mountain fold, I'm going to have it adhere on this upper flap. So really, this 1/2 inch section goes right there. So it's easier for me to look at it this way, and that I'm going to put tear and tape, which is a nice strong adhesive, across the top here. So I'm going to put tear and tape there, as well as on the very outside edges of this larger flap. And I'm putting it as far as I can over to the edge because I want to leave enough clearance in the middle that this piece can slide up and down and not hit the adhesive on the two sides. Okay. So we're going to start out putting this one up top. Again, I'm centering it left to right and then putting it right above that score line. Okay, I probably want to put some kind of a finger hole here. So I'm going to use a small circle punch. You can use a die or any punch, and it doesn't even need to be a circle. As you can see, this one here, I use the heartfelt hexagon. Just something that gives it a little bit of a curve and lets you know that that's a gift card pocket. I'm using my bone folder just to burnish that glue a little bit, make sure it adheres really well. And then I'm going to center this overall in the front of the card. But I'm only going to adhere it across the top because I want it to not be adhered on the bottom. We wouldn't want to glue our card shut, right? Okay, so there is the base of our card, and now we're ready to do some stamping. So I'm going to bring in my basic white pieces here. And I'm going to start out with this You're as Sweet as Honey. This is going to be my inside layer. I'm aligning it on the line of our grid paper, picking it up with the block. And then I'm going to align my paper with the grid paper as well. Okay, so there's our inside. Now for the outside, we're going to be building the bee. And the bee comes in multiple pieces so that you can stamp each piece in the color that it's supposed to be stamped in, and you can kind of mix and match because there's different little parts that you can use. We have our wings, and then if you wanted to fill in the wings, that's what this heart is for. It would put color inside the wings. This is the body of our bee, and then the stripes that go over it. And of course, whether you put them on this way or this way is going to determine what way your bee is facing. And then there's lots of different little faces that you can use to put the face on, and then we have his antennae. And again, this is what I call two-step stamping because they're going to stamp one and then the other over the top. One of the good ways to make sure that you get really good alignment is with a stamp positioning tool. And since Stampin' Up! No longer has the Stamparatus, I've been using this Mini Misty. It works similarly in that we're going to butt our paper down into the corner. And then I'm going to position my bee where I want it to go. And I'm going to go ahead and stamp my yellow for the bee. So I'm going to place it where I want it to go. I'm going to pick it up with the plate. And then I'm going to ink this up. This is where ink spots may come in handy because the smaller pads are sometimes easier to work with, so that you don't hit the plate with them by accident. And that has a little bit of something on there. So I'm going to clean that off because see, it left some little empty spaces. I didn't really want that. So we're going to come back and do this again. This is one of the beauties of using a stamp positioner tool, is that it will stamp at exactly the same place, allowing you to get a darker color, which works particularly well when we use the black. Okay. Okay, then we're going to use his body. And so I'm going to place this where it needs to go. And I'm going to bring it off camera a little because I need to look straight down from the top to ensure that I am getting the exact placement that I want. And then I'm going to pick this up, and then we're going to ink this up with black. And then we're going to stamp. Okay, now this is where, remember I was saying where we needed the black to be good and dark. See how that's not quite dark enough? I can come in and ink this again and go back to that same area. And it's just going to make those stripes that much darker and bolder. This, of course, is also good if you're trying to align sentiments, if you want them to go straight, so that you can use the grid on here to keep everything straight. Come in with his wings. And we'll do those in Pool Party. Align his face and then the antennae. And then one last thing, I'm going to do the little tail off the back for his little path that he's flying. And I actually kind of like the fact that it's running off the edge. I actually prefer it that way because it's what it's doing, right? It's flying off the edge. Set this aside and finish cleaning those up and putting them away later. Oh, we need the Petunia Pop one more time. Just for the sentiment on the front. And I could have used the stamp positioner for this. I didn't think about it because I wasn't as worried about this going straight. And then we can adhere these to our card. So this one, as I said, there's going to be that extra at the bottom. So I'm just making sure that my top 3 borders are even. Adhere this one to the front. And then we're going to add some embellishments. And there we go. Maybe do a few more. Just as I do these, I want to make sure that I'm doing them in odd numbers. Okay, so there is our sliding pocket card using the Be My Valentine and stamp set and the Cute as a Bee designer series paper. So I hope that you love today's card and you give it a try. I'd love to see what you come up with. Thanks so much. Bye.